Perfect. Welcome to NOCLIP. I'm Chad Ruthermond.
I'm JJ Artemes.
And I'm Andy Kinnick.
And today we're joined by special guests. Oh, he's not really that special, but a guest, Daniel Otten.
Hey, everyone's favorite original cast member.
That's what they call me. Today we're going to be talking about... I didn't mean to derail it immediately with that dumb joke.
You did.
But today, we're going to be talking about Return of the Obra Dinn, which was a game that was released in 2018. It was developed by Lucas Pope. Lucas Pope, his previous game, was a game that was called Papers, Please. And the genre of Papers, Please was, I believe, rubber. And I bounced off of it instantaneously.
Oh my god.
Bad jokes are just flowing like...
Yeah.
Flowing like the sea around the Obra Dinn.
I see the Obra Dinn has got you in a comedy mood. You're about as funny as the game.
Was the film Rubber based on that, Chad?
That was Flubber.
Yeah.
Oh, Flubber.
Flubber was based on it. Rubber was based on true events. But this game, in my opinion at least, took a very different tact of being accessible, which I thought was an interesting choice. And I know that people who are big fans of Papers, Please would probably shit all over me for that.
Even me.
Yeah.
I shit on you.
That's fine.
Actively.
But of the two, this is definitely the one I prefer.
Me too, but that's because it's great.
Yeah, I've never actually played Papers, Please. I was aware of it before playing this game and did not realize it was the same developer until finishing the game.
Right.
So, I've never heard of it, so...
Glad to have you on.
I will say, between the two, I have a strong preference for Obra Dinn.
Fair. You would like Papers, Please specifically. It's a very somber sort of exploration of your moral compromises that you can get into while working as a government agent in a really oppressive state. You're a guy who's just on the border trying to choose between whether to let people in or not based on papers and whether or not their papers actually are good or bad, or et cetera, et cetera. And it's even more dour than this game. And
it does actually sound pretty interesting.
Yes, love it to death, and it got a lot of attention, which it completely deserved.
Yeah, I don't take that away from it. The fact that I had literally no enjoyment, and even though that's kind of the point, I don't think that it was a flaw in the game design. I think he in fact executed on it perfectly.
Similar to this, and Obra Dinn, similar in another way, is also getting a lot of media attention. It's this seems to so far be this year's go-to indie game, the thing that you bring up when indie comes up in conversations.
Yeah, I believe literally in the last month, I think, and this is post us planning this. As you know, I didn't fucking shout it out at the beginning, but we are in Mystery May right now, and part of the restriction on our game selection for Mystery May is that they have to contain mysteries.
Yes.
And Janelle pointed out before we started recording that it's also Mermaid, which is an actual thing. So this game was this game was a double feature: mysteries and mermaids.
That's true. Yeah, there's lots of we'll get into the mermaids in this game at some point in the probably very near future, but. Yeah, so we do pick these games that have that are mysterious in nature, and we wouldn't have brought the whole really stupid concept back if we didn't have something planned. But in the last month, I've seen 2 video essays that both involve Obra Dinn in some way, and it's insane to me because this game's been out for a little while, and it's not of the caliber of advertising that you would expect to see it in media at all. So it is unique and weird that this game gets as much press as it does.
I mean, it's coming from a developer with solid credentials, and if they would not, and has a completely unique art style. Like nothing looks like this game, even among like Pope's other work. That's all kind of similarly, not really cell shaded. How do you even describe the aesthetic of this game?
I'm glad it came up so fast, because I heard in one of said video essays that Chad is referencing, I also watched, and they pointed out that the art style kind of mimics the illustrations found in the book, but kind of like in a reverse palette, because it's like black where there would be white on the paper. Right. And I didn't think of it that way myself while I was playing, but once they brought it up, I'm like, oh yeah, that's totally what they were going for. And all the little speckling is like the imperfections of like a quill pen stroke and everything, etc., etc. But like while I was playing it, I noticed like the graphics settings had like, were all called like Macintosh, IBM,
right?
It like old computer interfaces like Commodore, whatever. And that's kind of what it made me think of, like an old Atari game, like where things are just represented in black and white, but made 3D. Is kind of how I thought of it while I was playing.
Yeah, this it takes the same sort of aesthetic inspiration as a game like Downwell does, where the intent is to put you in a situation that makes you reminisce about these PC games of old. And it's one of the things that I, really like about the aesthetic. Like, I feel like they have nailed something here, but it feels both anachronistic toward its subject matter and also toward the game part of the game. Because in games from... I know.
And your point that they didn't have 1-bit graphics in 1806, Chad.
I mean, I will explain what I'm talking about here. It specifically being, it feels weird to apply a very specific computer aesthetic, like a like old hardware aesthetic, to a game about like the high seas and all of the shit that happens that we will get into. It's my favorite part. And then it also feels weird to map that aesthetic onto something that still ostensibly plays and feels like a modern like 3D game.
Yeah, I heard somebody talking about Breath of the Wild that mentioned how when they play the memories, the sequences, they have like an old film grain over them, and how it's kind of like grayed over with like a filter, and how they compared like old like movies started being made like 100 years ago in real life, and the memories take place 100 years ago in the game, and like putting like aligning those things makes it feel old when you look at the memories. And it kind of had a similar effect for me here, where like the old computer visuals emphasized the fact that the time period was older,
right,
and not modern.
Yeah, and I think that is like probably what he's going for here. Like, I think that it's sort of a visual shorthand between like the period of the game and the visuals. I just think that it's one of those things where if you take a step back from it and try and do an explanation, which is what I did immediately upon seeing the settings, like I wouldn't have even thought about this if he didn't include the settings to change the like default platform that it was on. I, of course, played through the whole game in the default mode. It looks really good, and I don't really have much nostalgia for any of these things.
Yeah, I kept changing it between the different black and white options. It's like, which is the most black and white? I think I had settled on LCD, because it had, like, the blackest blacks.
Yeah, you had to get that 4K.
You need that nice contrast.
Yeah, UHD, all that good shit. But I wouldn't change any of it for the world. Like, I think that it all ends up looking really good. I just think that it's sort of nonsensical, but it's nonsensical in a way that works.
Yeah.
Which is a pretty good thesis statement, I think, for the entirety of this game.
That is...
Well, I don't know if it's... Well, I don't know if it's nonsensical, or maybe you mean something else by nonsensical, because when I started this game, I mean, obviously, visually it looks great, but I was worried that the aesthetic choices were going to be kind of a gimmick. But I actually think it not only does it look great, it enhances the gameplay, because part of what it does is, number one, it's like echoes of the drawings in the book, which I think is great. And I found that it obscured the faces just enough to be really interesting. Like, you could never look at someone's face and be 100% sure about their ethnicity and like other details about them that might make it a little bit harder to identify them. And I thought that actually enhanced the gameplay a lot. So maybe you meant something else by nonsensical, but I actually think, you know, not only did it look good, it had a gameplay purpose as well.
Right. To your point, I think in addition to being able to tell like ethnicity and other like very specific like especially facial features about people, it also adds a level of ambiguity to when you're in a group of people, so that you can't at a glance recognize who's there unless they're wearing like their very distinct uniform. Mm-hmm. And I think that adds to it because it forces you to go in and not only examine each individual person as you come to them, but also that will in turn force you to also look at the things around them, which lets you pick up more detail, which the game absolutely 100% requires you to do in order to complete it.
I totally agree. And it's something that bothered me a lot at first, because I found this game to be really hard initially. And I was like, man, I wish I could like tell people by their faces better. Like, it was really frustrating at first, but like I definitely settled into it eventually, and I agree that I think it enhances it. Mm-hmm. And like it forces you to like learn what everyone does on the ship, which is one of like the best ways to actually fill out the notebook, is by like learning people's jobs.
Yeah. Oh, and right. I think JJ definitely has something he wants to say here.
Yes.
But just so as not to leave a loose end, the thing that I meant when I said nonsensical was the application of old computer aesthetics to a game that is both controlled like a modern 3D game and also set far in the past with like archaic technology sort of like being a main theme of it. And that's what I meant, is that it's just like they took two totally separate things that you could conceivably put together and then added a third layer to make it sort of like a hodgepodge of everything.
It's a delicious layer. It is a nice 3-layered like sponge cake, this game. It's
wow, coming in hot and early with your food comparison.
Yeah, I was gonna go with lasagna, but cake also works.
Yes, I felt a sort of sweetness from but I think it's more of my time with the game than the game itself. This game it is climbing up the ladder. Before the environmental details get away from us, not only does this game pick the precise level of abstraction necessary in terms of facial composition and outfits, but the old style also lets them intentionally be way more simplistic with background information to better direct like player attention, not just to specific people, but to specific objects and rooms, right. So that you know, and it's more easy for you to pick up on, say, something that would be like a ludicrous leap of logic in any other game, like the necklace that's hanging on, I think, one of the midshipmen's rooms, that stands out because of the art style that they chose and how unusable it is for the room, that wouldn't necessarily do so if the game was more cluttered visually. Like the detail of the faces, for example, while it's not like anywhere close to true fidelity, it's way more detailed than the environments around them.
Right.
Like I love the choice. I love the way that he manipulates the amount of detail in the environments to like meet design goals. It is so wonderful.
Okay, so in that vein, I do want to question one thing.
Yeah.
I know already, going into this, that I'm going to end up slightly more negative than the rest of you, just based on everything that's been said so far. I agree with pretty much everything that we've gotten into here, but I do want to kind of push back on that part of it. I think that the specifics, especially with the face recognition thing, the fact that it's more detailed, I don't think actually helps recognize people at a glance, and it makes you have to go into the like zoom in to see their image thing, which I think did two things kind of wrong. One, it overlays it on top of the game, so you have to physically move yourself around to see who it is.
That was kind of silly.
Yeah, which is especially terrible. Yeah, which is especially terrible when it's one of the like okay, like the top men who hang out in the back of that fucking picture in the like setting sail picture, and I'm just like, well, all right, like this guy's head takes up 4 people. So it's probably one of these guys. So you have to go to his page, look at his picture, go to his other memories, go find where they fucking are, and go all the way around. So predictably, my second complaint about this is just, hey guys, I'm Trey Rutherman from the NOCLIP Podcast.
Takes way too long.
It takes so goddamn long to get into some of these memories to rehash certain like details, just to, like, jog your memory.
In your defense, like, I felt that way occasionally, where there will be like details that I missed, and then like having to comb back through all the memories is like, what memories was this guy in, and like having to go back through and like piece together the details you missed can take a long time. Especially there's one chapter that, or I guess chapter,
it's
and
chapter.
And it's got like 7 or 8 segments in it, like following like the through the stories of all the like the seamen, as they're called. It could take
a laugh right now.
Yes.
Good. That's an important clarification that you weren't making a horrible joke.
Yeah. It felt necessary in the moment, but it can get frustrating at times depending on like what stuff you pick up on and what you miss and what you have to go back for.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say that I guess I'm kind of sympathetic to that. I think in terms of gameplay and design, I disagree that it takes too long to do things generally. I think there is a learning curve to figuring out how to use the UI. Janelle and I played this with a controller. I don't know if you guys played keyboard and mouse or what the distinction is there, but, you know, highlighting a person and like bookmarking all their memories and figuring out how to flip in chronological order, that took a while to master. Once we got that down, I found it to be a relatively seamless system and a really important tool. And now I'm seeing the looks on your faces and thinking maybe you never learned how to do that.
I have one really specific question, because this is something that I actively attempted to figure out and was unable. And it would have streamlined the process, but we'll get later into why it wouldn't have streamlined it that much. When you do anything, like when you bookmark somebody's set of memories, is there a way to jump back into the memory without physically going there and clicking the watch?
No. Not that I know of.
All right, then 100% I am the UI master. I have reached UI proficiency level 5, and it was still not quite enough for me. But I did most of my puzzle solving like actually within the memories, and I think that might have been part
I think
of it.
the problem is not like the size of the space and how long it takes to get places, more as how many bodies there end up being and having to find the correct one.
Right, yeah. Especially
because they give you the little
fuzziness.
map, but it's just like an X on like a boat outline shape.
Right.
So it doesn't really help.
So you
all
like
that
scroll
much.
down, like, oh my god, I googled so much in this game that wasn't like, who is this guy and how did he die? What I googled was like, what the fuck is a lazarette? Because it's not in the glossary, and I'm just expected to know that.
That was the one thing that Janelle and I looked up to. We were like, we were very proud of beating this game without looking up anything. But we were like, what the hell is a lazarette?
Yeah, I was like, what does a top man do? And as it turns out, it's also a brand of men's clothing, which makes Googling it very fucking hard. So I was trying to come up with all of these, like, sea terms, and, like, I come in there going, like, well, I know which side is port and which side starboard, so I'm way ahead of the curve. And it turned out, no, I wasn't. Not a nautical dude, me.
Well, one thing I was going to add, I don't know if this is on topic or not, was, you know, I think this ultimately was a good thing about the game design, but the amount of information that you're presented with in bursts can be really overwhelming, especially if you're the kind of person that likes to, like, go through things systematically in, like, a really organized way. Because just when you think you have a handle on things, you'll go through, like, 12 memories in a row, where every time you see someone die, you get another like shaky stopwatch moment.
Right.
Which, reflecting on it, I actually think is a great thing, because at the time I felt a lot of anxiety about like, I'd notice one little detail in a scene and think like, oh, like, that connects to something else. And then I'd be whisked away to like 3 other deaths. But then it was really exciting to think like, oh, I've got so much to like go back and comb through. So I think ultimately like that was a positive aspect of the game design.
Yeah, early on, I was having, like, Majora's Mask flashbacks, where I'm like, oh my god, there's so much information, I'm expected to keep track of all of it in my head. But, like, it definitely, like, ended up becoming manageable, I think, early enough that I was not turned off from it. But, like, early on, I was like, oh man, I don't know what the game expects of me, and, like, what I'm supposed to notice in this moment. Like, how much do I need information from like 3 hours from now to solve this, or
right.
is it all here? Like, I feel like it didn't communicate that very well in the beginning.
Yeah, that's one thing I want to, like, for one thing, I want to commend the tutorial of this game, and the tutorial being like the entire the end chapter. They do a really good job of kind of explaining it, but I actually had kind of a similar, like, overwhelming dread feeling, having played Papers, Please, and knowing, like, how quickly I just, like, got lost in what I wanted to get out of it. I wasn't sure if I was going to hit the same wall with this game, because the first time that I found a corpse, the guy in front of the door, and I hit the stopwatch on it, and then after a while the screen closes in, I was like, oh shit, like, was that it? Like, do I not get to go back? Like, can I not explore? And it goes through, like, probably 5 minutes of sort of, like, book explanation and all of, like, your UI elements and what's important, what to look for, the face signaling thing, what the cause of death would be. And then it goes back to where you can actually, like, look at the memory again, and I was like, just like beads of sweat like starting to form, because I was like, this is a lot of information I don't have.
Yeah, like the second, like after the end, it moves you like right into another like group of scenarios,
the best one,
and it does the thing where it like whisks you from death to death with the watch, and I'm like, oh my god, like I started playing this without a notebook. Like, I should have been writing shit down.
But to the game's credit, you don't need a notebook. I mean,
that's
I don't know
true.
if you guys took notes while you were playing. There was one scene that we jotted down some notes, but like, you can beat this game without taking any notes, which I think speaks to how well it is designed.
Yes. I regret a little bit not having like actual pen and pencil with me when I was playing this, because there were certain elements. Most notably, we can go over this section at some point if you guys want to, but the part of the game that I disliked the most, and not even because of anything other than just this element of it, like the actual puzzle solving element, was I wish I knew the chapter names, but it's the one where you progressively go further and further out at sea, and so you find a corpse, and then you don't necessarily get the cause of death from the corpse itself, but you get it from like 3 seconds earlier. And so you keep going back and forth in the same area with very little outside information. You have all the details in front of you, and they, I think, tried to streamline that one, but then at the same time it just becomes like, how much of this do I actually need to know? How much of this is irrelevant? Like, I have names in this one, which is important, but then also, like, I have no idea what happened to this guy because he's just now laying on the ground and I'm not sure what's up. And at that point, I wish I had notes so that I could sort of just keep track of everything and, like, what the chronology was. Because I did end up having to go back through that whole thing twice to finish it. Like, you can jump into it from other corpses, but, like, it's really only beneficial to go through it in the intended order.
I just went out, like, right after the tutorial. I walked over to CVS Pharmacy and just picked up a cute little, like, My Baby's First notebook because it had a little ship on it, and it was like little, good and tiny.
Oh, really? That's tremendous.
Yeah. It's like first graders like sailing like thing. So I just opened it up and had all my little notes there. But not only is literal written notes not necessary to complete the game, I generally found note taking in this game to be not as useful as I expected it to be. It was useful on a couple of occasions to remind me about things in the past, but I think the reason why having a notebook and trying to act out the Sherlock Holmes fantasy of this game is less useful than you'd expect is because frequently this game doesn't actually require you to make like strict deductions. There are certain times, of course, when it does. It switches back and forth between like induction and deduction and just showing you things and you having to make wild guesses to try and it's all freeform and it's all wonderful. But in the majority of cases, the kind of puzzles that you're going to see are things like the shoes on the various top men that you had all these troubles like sticking out from their sleeping bunks, which was how I eventually crossed that fun little threshold.
Yeah, that did nothing for me at all. Like the shit, like literally, I heard the exact tip about shoes, and I was like, "How does this help me at all?" Like I was like, I don't know who these fucking people are. I later find out that the numbers on the beds correspond to the thing
in the book, yeah.
But if you've already identified that person successfully, it replaces the number with an X. So I didn't know there was a number on the beds. So it became this fucking ridiculous guesswork to try and get all of the people because I just didn't know what the hell was going on.
That is tough. It was Janelle. Janelle and I played through this whole game together.
Mm-hmm.
It was her who.
Cheaters.
What?
I just said cheaters.
Yeah, it was her who even noticed that the bunks were labeled with numbers. And I do think if you don't notice that detail like relatively early, it significantly increases how hard this game is.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, being able to identify people in a scene based on their bunk number corresponding to their number in the crew list is a pretty crucial piece of information.
Crucial?
Oh my god. Okay.
That one was worth it, though.
Let's just move on. Oh, Jesus.
But this is actually kind of... I don't know. I feel like we're straying a little bit far from what we had originally started on.
All right,
here.
then let me fucking slam down this bomb, this enormous stake that I'm... This game is really hard. It is exactly as hard as it needed to be, and I think of any game we've ever played for the podcast, I think this game is the worst for our format.
Whoa.
Yes, I think, not that in terms of our discussion, I meant in the pace of play. Like, I, all things considered, would have wanted to play this game for literally like 6 months. Like, I think you play this game like a 10,000 piece jigsaw puzzle, where you go in, before like any of the impatience that like we've discussed at a couple of occasions, or having to constantly revisit these memories, before any of that sets in, you like get up, maybe go see a new memory, maybe go revisit an old question, maybe find someone in the book who with like a low number of those little stars where you realize you don't know what they are, but you think you might have the information available to go figure it out. And then you go back and you revisit the crime scene. Like, that's the pace of play that I would have wanted for this game, playing it no more than like 1 to 2 hour chunks at a time, if that. Like, and it would have been so much, I think, even more rewarding to me than it was, and it was already a great experience, which makes me shocked. I think that also explains why a lot of the content coming out about this game is coming out so late after its release date, and why it's maintained so much of a place in popular culture over that time. Because I think there are people like who are playing the game in the way that I'm suggesting, where it's just taking them a long, long time to get through it, because there are a lot of distinct inferences to be made. And I wish there were more games like this, in the way that I assume as someone who likes crossword puzzles loves that there are more crossword puzzles after each one is done. I wish that there was a series of Obra Dinn, but knowing Pope, it will never come, and I am fine with that. Why do you have hate in your eyes, Chad?
I feel like you forced my hand on this one.
Yeah.
More so than I maybe wanted to.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think I agree, because of how very vague the game is on some kind of important aspects. The big ones for me, that really like sort of... Let me back up. This game starts out in, I think, one of the best ways I've ever seen a game start, because it drops you in, it gives you some background on what's going on.
A man in a boat yells at you.
Yeah, and then you're given the book that's basically going to be the game for the rest of the game. And you proceed on to the thing, you do the tutorial that I've already lauded. I think it's great, and I think that they do a really good job of explaining what it is that you need to know, how you're going to get the information, and then give you the chance to fill it in. Then you go through the game and you get all of these other little vignettes, and you figure out what happens on the boat. Pretty quickly, you get an idea as to what's going on. I think that within the first 3 hours of the game, I would say 3 to 4 hours, you have the like historical understanding of what happened.
Fucking evil chest. Fucking evil pirate loot booty shit.
Exactly, which has angered all of the sea mutants and krakens that could ever be. And then the game hits a brick fucking wall, and it just says, "Look at text. Look for tiny details around the place." And that can be enjoyable, but I don't find that enjoyable at all.
Okay.
Like, and I think it's not a disagreement with you saying that I think that the game could be enjoyed for a very long time by somebody who likes that kind of a puzzle. But, like, I spent so much time just in the book looking at names, trying to remember faces, that it becomes really tedious. Super tedious, and it got to the point where I just stopped looking for more detail and just guessing. And that is how I finished probably the last third of it.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound like a great experience.
No, it sounds miserable. Like, my first day, I walked out of the room. I literally recommended the game to 2 people within the first hour, and then, like, walked around, did shit. I had a bunch of shit going on that week. Then I came back about 3 days later, picked the game back up, and then just kept leaving. Like, I kept walking away from it and going, like, I don't care. I'm not going to go find the other thing. I'm sick of listening to the like, big explosion sound that happens when you find a corpse inside of a memory, because I'm going deeper and deeper into all this shit to see if a chair is, like, in the wrong place. And I don't know who any of these people are, who they're referencing. The information is totally barren, and like, it honestly would have been easier if the disappearances were more clear, because that allows you to do a lot more process of elimination. And, like, there's like a whole... basically, if you find out one of them, you're going to nail literally every other one. Because the disappearances are all the same in every chapter, like, with each other, with the exception of, like, maybe 1 or 2. And they're so... like, one of them is just, like, you just put everybody fucking drowns. And it's like... well, how the fuck do I know that they drowned? Like, the rest of this game, you seem to have very concrete evidence to the point where you can't say somebody was crushed. You have to be like, well, they were crushed by a cannon, or the Kraken, or a guy, or they fell down the fucking stairs. And, like, I'm in favor of all of that. I think that adds a level of depth that is incredible, especially when you have the information available to you to pick it up. But then when you're just like, they got on a boat, I don't know, they drowned. And then once I guessed that, I got, like, a trigger, got 3 of them, and then just put the rest in, and they were all correct instantaneously. That's not really a fun inference to make. That's just ticking off checkboxes.
Can I make a couple points here? Because
please.
I'm very glad that you brought that up.
Uh-huh.
The first is, Andy, I'm really interested to hear, like, what your take is on this, because Janelle and I, like, I think this is a great game to play through with someone else. Yeah. And we never ran into a wall, and I think it's partly because we were playing through it together. I think that playing through it with someone else, having two perspectives really helps you avoid getting stuck on stuff. Because it was very often the case that she would notice really important stuff that I had missed, or vice versa. So we had a kind of comfortable cruise. I found that the difficulty in this game to be basically perfect. It was super rewarding how hard it was, but we never got stuck in a way that wasn't fun. I do completely agree with you, Chad, on the drowning deaths. I thought that was like a narrative weakness in the game. In a lot of ways,
you can mirror the entire argument for the crushed by a monster or whatever, because there are two sets. There's the Doom and then the Escape, and both of them, all of the disappearances are all going to the same place roughly. There might have been a couple of different ones. So like the same complaint applies to like 2 or 3 different ones.
The way that I think your point stands about the drowning. The way that we solved some of the drowning disappearances was basically, we were like, wow, I don't really see like what we're missing here. And then I had an epiphany of like, hold on, like, look at who's in this boat. And it was like a boat of red shirts. Like, there was no way that any of these people lived. And so we were like, well, they got in a boat and like, maybe they're alive. And then I was like, no, like, there's the guy that killed the Danish dude. Like, he's gonna die. And then I was looking, it was like the purser, who had no characterization other than being like in charge of money. So he's gonna die. I was like, let's just put drowned. And it worked. Like, in that case, it was like some like extra game knowledge about how narratives work, which I like. I don't know if that's ultimately a good game design decision. But my broader points are, I'm very interested to hear about difficulty curve perspectives for single player. I think for 2 people, like, I loved the difficulty curve in this game, and I agree with your point about the drownings being a little bit, kind of cheap.
Yeah. I want to jump in just real fucking fast here to say that the issue with the drownings thing is not necessarily being able to determine that those people are going to die, even though I don't necessarily agree with your reasoning on it, because like the dude who killed the Danish guy is literally like he's a sailor, he's a seaman. That's what he does for his job.
Not the Kraken part, though.
Yeah,
the Kraken part. Oh, because they leave
right before the Kraken attacks. It's the one part that it helps you actually deduce that is like, it took us a long time to figure it out, but we were going back through the memories and I was like, oh wait, like this is right before the Kraken, so like they definitely don't make it out. So,
but they could have also been killed in like 18 different ways, similarly out on the boat. So you do have to guess.
Yeah,
but that's the right one.
That's just induction at its weakest point in this game. Because this game frequently asks you to make those kind of assumptive leaps to progress. There just aren't nearly that shaky. Like, I see these people walk around together very frequently. I bet that means that's his steward. That's how I understood stewards in the first place, and then made the connection about the clothing.
Right.
Like, that's not foolproof, and it's very infrequent in which you're given absolute solid, conclusive evidence. Like, think of how stingy this game is about names in general, one way or the other. Like, and then you can do that well and poorly. Most of the time it does it well. I'll agree that drowning guys is not the best implementation. But they had a little bit of they wanted 60 partially for the intimidation factor at the beginning, and it makes you feel so much more accomplished at the end. But
is that the part where they're all out on the boats and they get attacked by the mermaids?
No. This is
that's a different part.
They all died, and one guy came back and got shot.
There was a similar thing with that, where there were a couple of people who got attacked by mermaids, and I was like, did they get clawed by the mermaids? Did they get speared by the mermaids? Were they drowned by the mermaids?
See them like getting pulled into the water.
Yeah, I thought that meant that they got clawed, but then they got drowned. Yeah,
there's a lot of weirdness like that. Like I kept. It took me a while, and this was a huge hang-up for a long time. I kept counting mermaids as foreign enemies.
Yes, I was going to bring this up too.
Did the exact same thing.
And it's a complete red herring, right? There's no foreign enemy in this whole game. They actually meant like Indian people, but there are no those.
The creatures on the crab monsters.
Yeah,
like those guys are riding the demon crabs. So I was like, oh, they're pretty humanoid. Like we'll mark them as a foreign enemy. And turns out they're supposed to be marked beast. That was like a kind of a weakness in the way that they described
the trick with that one is there is some fuzziness in like what it'll accept. But one of the things is there's like a there's a series of like murders that happen like immediately once you find the guy in the. I said the word earlier, but now I don't remember.
Lazarette?
In the Lazarette, who's like been fucking shot.
Yes.
And he, like, when you go through that whole thing, there's a bunch of people who get killed by the crabs. And there's a really suspicious cause of death that is just spiked, which is a real, like, that draws your attention to it because you're like, what does that mean? And if you put spiked, it always completes it to a terrible beast. So I just assumed terrible beast for all of those.
Gotcha.
And it ends up working out.
But they're speared too, and they have spears.
Yeah. That's
and ultimately the
parts.
correct answer is spear. Like when they use their spears, it's supposed to be speared by a terrible beast.
They had
as opposed to spiked, and they also shoot spikes.
I was gonna say like I think it's the crab monsters have a thing where they shoot spikes at you.
Yeah.
But
Andy, what is your view on the difficulty curve?
I kind of had a similar experience to Chad, but like 8 times more mild. Where,
Sounds like you.
Like once I got towards the end, it started getting like a bit tedious and frustrating. I looked 1 or 2 things up. I'll admit it. I know.
You coward.
But
Walk the plank.
yeah, I really liked like the first half where it kept leading me from thing to thing. That was really like exciting and engaging. And then I didn't really hit a wall till like right up at the end, like sweeping up the last few things. And I was, you've brought up you played it with Janelle. I was thinking the whole time this would have been a great game for us to have played together when I'd come home from Morgantown and we'd play games. I was like, it felt like right for like playing with somebody else. Because, like, I remember you, like, before we had played Grim Fandango, you talking about how hard it was and how long it was. Mm-hmm. And then Dan and I played it together, and, like, we beat it pretty quick.
Right.
At least, like, 3/4 of it. Like, it gets pretty ridiculous towards the end. And so, like, I was thinking, like, games like this that are more, like, adventure-y, like, notice details in the environment kind of games are better played with somebody else. Because, you fill in each other's weak spots.
Yeah. I mean, there were even times in this game where I would interpret something that somebody said in the wrong way. It's like right when the crab monsters attack, and one of the characters, I think the carpenter's mate, says, like, it's over for Nick already. Like, I could not wrap my head around the correct interpretation of that. Like, I kept marking people in the scene as Nick, and Janelle literally had to, like, tell me to shut up and explain what he meant by that. Like, it's over for Nick. Like, Nick's already been killed, and that, like, led us to correctly identifying him. That kind of, and if I wasn't playing with her, I would have been probably hung up on that for, another couple hours before I realized that I had made a mistake. So I think that it can't be understated or overstated how much having someone else play the game who is engaged with what's going on can help you avoid pitfalls.
And even when you have a group present, it's not like there's ever going to be a time where you have so many people that are like, oh, the game's way too easy now, because you have that reward of like the social interaction. Like when someone else in the room speaks and like gives you the solution and has that aha moment, like you're kind of there with them, and it feels good to be with someone and be a part of that when they figured it out. So it's not like you're losing anything comparatively. Like it's still a really cool experience, even if the difficulty curve goes way down.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same concept that's behind like why escape rooms are like a big social thing now, where you take a group of people in to solve a puzzle that most likely you're going to hit something that you aren't going to be able to do by yourself, and having the other people there, and it feels collaborative and it feels good like that. I feel like that description, though, seems totally at odds with the way that you think that you would have enjoyed this game the most.
Oh yeah, I think both I would have enjoyed more than the way that I did it, but I enjoyed all 3 tremendously. At least I presume I would.
Wait, when you said you would enjoy tackling it like piece by piece in the way that you did, are you saying that like with the caveat that like you had been taking notes that you can go back and reference? Because I feel like if I tackled this game over a long period of time, I would just forget everything.
No, I say that with a caveat.
Forgot most things on my second playthrough.
I say that with a caveat of like I'd spend 15 minutes to 30 minutes in every scene, in every flashback.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Giving myself plenty of time not just to remember, but to take in those details and have no pressure to rush and ignore the watch when it's shaking around and telling you to be like... Because I still think that's a good design decision. We've already touched on that element of jumping between into further memories before, that little chaining of deaths. It seems like a good decision on their part to force you into the classic like sleuth position of like, oh, we gotta revisit things, we gotta check this a second time, because that is in itself also rewarding when you correct your own prior mistakes. So I'm fine with that, but I prefer to live in a way in which I could just spend a long time avoiding those in the first place and just hang out until the Obra Dinn feels like my own bedroom, my own wonderful
and then just
living
quit
space.
out before things get frustrating.
Yeah.
The actual thing that I'm kind of like, I don't know, I feel like I missed a bit of an opportunity on this one, because the game pretty clearly signals to you that there's the coward's way out, which is to just fucking leave as soon as the rain starts, which the rain sound actually, like, this is going to be a very personal thing, annoyed the shit out of me, like the fact that the raining was happening all the time.
Yeah,
so I kept going below deck.
I felt the
most
exact
Chad
opposite.
thing I've ever heard.
Yeah,
That's deeply Chad. That is a Discord emote in the waiting.
I
right
found
there.
myself wishing that the rain had been there the whole time.
Yep. Yeah.
Because it made it like more atmospheric.
People literally sell devices that do nothing but make those sounds, Chad.
Yeah, I don't buy those.
Yeah, no.
It did kind of
there was a
highlight
while
that-
in law school where I would just like put on rain sounds to go to sleep every night. So
Yeah.
Yeah, it kind of made it stand out to me that there were no like ocean sound effects though, like
ocean.
waves crashing on the
Okay,
boat.
see, here's the thing: like ambient rain sound that you use to go to sleep, and also I would like to emphasize actual rain.
Yes.
Do not annoy me in the way that this did, because I had I would literally sit at a chair where there was no other noise, and then put headphones on, which just made rain noise at me while I read a book. That, I don't know, something about that just didn't sit right with me. But the point of this, in the end, is that at that point you can leave and just go do whatever.
Yeah.
And I really should have just solved what else I could based on the knowledge that I had, or the hunches that I had, where I knew I could go gather a little bit more information, knew what to tie up, the things that were satisfying to do, and then leave. Because, one, the end of game ending, while it does provide context, is exceptionally idiot-proof. You could not fuck up that ending if you you could do it by just intentionally picking the wrong ones, but you would know that you were doing that because there's literally only two other people to fill in, and they don't look anything alike, and you can see both. Yeah. So, and I think that's a good decision because it makes the ending have a good pacing to it. It lets you
It's like
sort
a victory lap.
Exactly, and it lets you sort of put the story together yourself. But it was preceded by my worst experience in the game, and if I had just left at the beginning, gotten to the credits, whatever, been done, I feel like I would have walked away from it the way that I walked away from her story, which was a lot more positively, where I said, I feel like I understand the majority of this to a level that's satisfactory to me without knowing that this motherfucker's name is John. I could give a fuck.
Yeah, her story doesn't have the complete the book kind of goal to it.
Right.
So walking away when you feel satisfied works in her story, whereas in this game you feel like you're leaving it unfinished.
Yeah, the game also agrees that it is unfinished and makes fun of you. I actually did this because I wanted to see what would happen. I played chicken with the game a little bit. Yeah, you get an achievement, and then there's a button on the menu.
Yeah,
that says you can just go back and rewind to just before you left. But literally all that happened is you're still in the room, you still have the tea, you still get the letter, but instead of receiving the monkey's paw package, it's just a letter that's just oh, he died and his last words were expressing his regret at giving you this job. because of how poorly you did at it and how much you sucked in every way.
You are bad at insurance.
Yeah.
Dude, that's so on brand,
The
and
game-
also I love it.
The game even makes like a wah 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 noise as the letter like goes down and receives into the bottom of the screen, and then just the end pops up instead. Game is very clear that you did not beat the game, and you would have felt much worse, I think, if the game just called you a moron for doing that thing.
Yeah, I also left before
I don't
getting them
think so.
all because I got to where I had 2 left, and I noticed there was like a blank chapter, so I was like, maybe these are for that chapter, and like, you know, because like I was like at my wall at that point, and I'm like, I can't figure these out, so I just left thinking like maybe I have to do these after some scene, and then I was like, nope, you get like the bad ending.
Oh, you had 2 left,
Like in the
not including the 2 that
though
didn't
you
get.
actually have to
56.
So, I had 2 left to actually fill in the book, and thought maybe I had to do them after leaving or something.
Yeah. I found Cause of Death, with the, of course, exception of the fucking the drowners. All of the, isn't that a Witcher 3 anime?
Yeah.
Not those guys, but rather the people who were stupid enough to drown. Take this.
Only
This is the
morons
takeaway.
drown.
Only idiots drown.
Hot
I'm
take.
taking a hard stance against drowning as a legitimate cause of death.
Wait,
No, this is all a joke. We're not getting into an actual conversation about this.
fine.
So, I even have forgotten. I think that you should leave when you feel satisfied that you understand the mystery. And I have a question for everybody. Are you guys satisfied with the first half of this podcast?
Yeah, I'm really hot. I've got some pit accessories that should not be there.
Accessories like droplets of water.
Yeah,
all
crabs.
Bunna. Chad, can I introduce the next segment even though you usually do it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so
I like this as a tradition. I like this a lot.
yeah, I know that longtime listeners, this is one of their favorite segments. We do it every episode. I think it started in the Mario Sunshine episode. No, dude, I don't want to infringe on anyone else's IP.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I think this started the Mario Sunshine episode. It's we do it every episode. JJ reviews justice systems. It's JJ's Justice Corner. So JJ, there was a trial in this game. A man confessed to murder and then was summarily executed. What did you think? What's your review of Obra Dinn's justice system?
I don't think pirates should have voting rights. And I think at least one of them was a pirate, because one guy stole some stuff. Actually, 2 guys stole some stuff on further review. And they screwed everything up because they're pirates, and they do bad things for bad reasons to good people.
Exclusively.
Exclusively. It's like that's their job. It's when you look up pirate in the job dictionary, and you go down and you scroll past all the other jobs.
When you look at pirates in the compendium of universal knowledge,
Of just jobs. Universal jobs.
Yeah, it tells you all this
All jobs that will
information.
ever exist.
Here's a question now: is a pirate execution
Yeah.
really a justice system in like the traditional sense, or is it more just like
He's sentenced-
another thing that pirates
Doesn't
do?
he say that he's sentenced to death under like the authority of the East India Company?
Yeah, can I jump in
The
here?
East India Company does not have fucking authority of
does.
maritime law.
Okay.
Yeah,
First
it
off,
does.
yes, they absolutely do. As a corporation commissioned by the English Crown,
Yes.
they absolutely do. And second off, none of these guys are pirates.
That's true.
These are not
They stole a
pirates.
few things.
So
Why did you stop hating on Chad's ignorance of the East India Company and turn back around on
Actually,
my
this
Hatred
stupid
is
jokes about
evenly,
pirates?
distributed.
I was actually so this is like such a fucking detour from
Yeah.
this other detour.
Uh-huh.
But the East India Company is something that I've heard multiple times. This is, I assume, a real thing.
Yes.
It was one of the most powerful organizations to ever exist in human history.
Okay, so here's some things people on the podcast should know about me.
Uh-huh.
I'm impatient. I don't know a whole lot about history, and 3, have never been on a boat before. I think these things coalesce into it being understandable that I have no idea what this is outside of fiction.
Also, the tragedy that is the American education system. I guess this one was even relevant to us. Like, highly relevant to the formation of our country.
Oh, when you said us, I assumed you meant me in particular.
I meant Americans, Chad. I
yeah.
meant citizens of the United States of America. Unless you've forgotten where you live and who assures your freedoms and why.
Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean is where I learned about it.
Yeah, the East India Company was a real thing. Relative to some other times or events in history, I don't know a ton about it, but I mean, it was basically ostensibly a corporation chartered by the English crown, but corporation, if you think about it in sort of modern terms, is probably a little misleading. It operated essentially as a quasi-governmental body and had a monopoly on trade in lots of parts of like the English Empire, so like India and China and other parts of Asia. JJ is right. The East India Company was like one of the most powerful, again ostensibly private organizations in world history, and basically operated as a government with its own military and other sort of state resources.
So, do we think that based on that information, I should have garnered anything about this narrative that I probably just missed completely?
No, I don't think so.
Didn't matter that much. Nah.
That's good. That's a positive thing, because I thought that it was like the TV trope would be a bland name product, where it's just like a thing that people use all the time to represent like some kind of company.
I mean, I guess that's better than thinking that like this game was set in the universe of Pirates of the Caribbean, which is an alternative.
Yeah, I mean,
in my defense, I also didn't know about it in Pirates of the Caribbean because, as I've mentioned on this podcast this year, just a few episodes ago, I've only seen the first Pirates movie, and I was 9, and it was in theaters, and I remember literally nothing about it. So, it wasn't that. I don't know where I heard it.
I mean, I'm pretty sure the East India
about
Company was only in the 3rd Pirates of the Caribbean movie, maybe the
They're
second one.
They're in the
third.
original.
I don't
as
think
well,
so.
I'm pretty sure.
I don't think so.
They aren't like a narrative force. They're
Right.
just there and around.
Yeah, just for context,
Well, whatever.
Shit on boats.
at the turn of the 19th century, so like when this game is set, I'm reasonably sure that the East India Company basically was the English presence in India. Like, they had a private army that was bigger than the British official army in India and essentially governed India.
Big boys. They were big boys with law.
This is like legitimate, like actual cool information that I'm glad is being put on the podcast. Like people are gonna listen to like us talking about Rascal, and they're gonna be like, "Ha ha, good time," and they're gonna come away from the Obra Dinn, and they're gonna be like, "Ha ha, I learned some shit."
It's your point that I should only be a guest host on episodes where I can put my master's degree in history to use.
Yeah, basically.
Rascal, I could not find a way to shoehorn in any history.
How
I guess
accurate
NATO was in Rascal.
Yeah. How accurate is Castle Past to actual
To
medieval
actually,
times?
yeah,
Not very
castles in the
accurate, I could
past.
say.
No, I'm pretty bad.
Actually, this does segue into something actually relevant to Obra Dinn. If we dare tread back into the waters
These
of
cursed
relevancy.
waters.
Yeah, are we gonna tread
dare.
water?
Yeah.
Let's get on it.
This is a small point, but it's like maybe it'll lead to something more interesting. Were you guys tripped up at all by the carpenter and carpenter's mate?
Yes.
Because the carpenter in the game is black. They're both Americans, and the carpenter's mate is a kind of like middle-aged white guy. And I've been going back and forth on whether I object to that on like from the game's point of view. I mean, I actually did a little bit of follow-up research on this because I didn't want to be wildly off base. The bullet point version of it is I was unable to confirm either way, but I have a strong suspicion that it would basically be unheard of in 1806 for a black man to be the carpenter and to have a white man be the carpenter's mate. And I can't decide if I think that was the game being a little tricky in a way that wasn't actually justified or not. I don't know if you guys had a similar experience with that or not.
I did the exact same thing where like I labeled them backwards on like similar assumptions, and it does kind of feel like something that's there just to catch you out.
Yeah.
There's also the matter of when you find the corpse for the carpenter's mate is actually doing carpentry like a carpenter might do.
And he sent his mate to go check on something.
Exactly,
yeah.
which was like basically my entire like line of thinking as to identifying who these people were. Because I narrowed it down to that they had to be one of the two, and I assigned it based on that scene. And yeah, it does feel like maybe it's a little bit of that, but also at the same time, when you're on a boat, and I don't think, I mean, there's some like very clear like intentional like narrative racism that is intended in the game, like as both part of world building and also kind of like an implied stereotyping that helps the player identify things, which may or may not help depending on whatever your proclivities are. I don't think that if you found this game easy that you're a racist. That would be an incredible leap, and I want to ensure that that's not what I'm getting across. But and so like when you put all of that stuff together, it does seem to make no sense that it would be the other way around when actually it is. It's an easy fix once you make enough other assumptions that you can narrow it down further, because you just flip-flop the names, and if it clicks, then you've got it.
Yeah, right, and they're both Americans, and I think they're the only Americans on the ship. So, you know, even if you get it wrong, you're right, it's not really that material. But I don't know. This is an English ship, and England didn't abolish slavery until the 1830s. Like, I can't imagine that it would be commonplace at all that a black sailor would have subordinates who were white. I just thought that was an interesting choice, given how the rest of the game really seemed authentic in the way that the small details would let you deduce people's identities.
I mean, it could be that this ship is just like a very progressive.
Exactly, right? Like, it could be a random one-off.
Like,
it could be the only black carpenter in the entire English Navy. It's not out of the question.
Yeah, I feel like the only race that they like inherently show bias toward,
mermaids.
Well, mermaids for sure. Which I'm against as a merfolk player in modern.
They're spiky and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And they have two sets of breasts that are always like present.
Yeah, and visible. They do like weird back bends so that you can tell that they're not human people.
Yeah.
But
put a fucking shirt on.
But they do seem to really hate I believe it's the Taiwanese.
The Formosans.
Yeah, because they say but it's that is like, I googled that one as well. I was like, what is this nation? I'm pretty sure Taiwan is what came up. And oh boy, do they hate those guys a whole lot.
But they got like magic powers and shit.
Well, they do have magic powers, which is in itself a little bit weird, right?
Yeah, granted, that is one of the strangest ways that old-timey racism generally comes up, and like the assignment of like extra human abilities.
Right,
even
like
worse.
witches
Yeah.
You can trace it back. People are just afraid of people with magical powers.
Yeah.
Which I think is more reasonable. Hey, maybe racism makes sense. I don't know if that's a thing I should put on the internet.
Yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, probably.
No racist there.
But yeah, it is strange. But they don't really have magical powers.
They have access to magical powers.
Yeah, they have like literally a chest full of shells.
Yeah.
That is very strongly desired by spiky mermen, crab people, ballista shrimp and a fucking kraken.
Well, as far as we can tell, they can basically use magic once, and then it kills them. I mean, when they're being attacked by mermaids is the only time we see somebody who is a human being activate these shells, and he burns to death after doing that, so...
Yeah,
there's two separate arms that are very clearly lost, but I feel like that's more a problem with the setting, in that no one's invented, like, latex yet, and I'm pretty sure that if you just had, like, a good full-arm covering there, like some thick surgical gloves, you could just get it on in that real nice and fast.
I don't know if we wanted to continue down this route, but it does lead into something that I do want to talk about, which is this game goes very quickly into the Kraken, and I appreciate that on a level that I've appreciated very few things in my life. The fact that this game starts in a way that's so unassuming, where it's like, oh, you walk in, you see the guy shoots the guy clubs the guy sneaks in through the back and he gets his head bashed in. You find the other corpse for the woman, and then you go, and there's a fucking giant octopus tearing the whole ship apart. Like, instantly. Like, it was in the first 20 minutes of the game, and I'm immediately intrigued.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, it's like a Kraken attack is, like, expected, I think, if you know there's a supernatural element. Anyway.
Which I didn't and wasn't sure. I mean, I guess there's obviously the stopwatch.
Yeah, but that's an important
they get
difference.
the Kraken out of the way early so that the crab people can be an awesome surprise.
Yeah, that's a great reveal. I love that.
Peering in
through the peephole.
Yeah, in the lazarette.
God damn.
Is such a good moment, because you get that limited viewpoint. You get all of that shit where you kind of just where you're piecing together what happens, and then you literally turn the corner, and it's just like insanity. That's real good.
That's gonna be my Halloween costume this year.
Big crab guy.
Big crab guy, yeah.
Good luck.
You have to do it like one of the 2-person horse costumes, but one of them is mounted on top of the other one.
Yeah. Like
it's a lot more acrobatic.
So it's really you're just riding another human being.
It's a piggyback ride, but
yeah.
it's a crabby back ride.
I don't know why that game. I think I had a taste to that word.
That's the smell the salt of the sea, JJ.
I feel like I just licked a crab shell. I feel like that's probably what living on a boat is really like every day.
It's like licking a crab shell.
Your point about you're definitely right that getting into the Kraken early is awesome from a narrative point of view. And I do think the game, there are these little inflection points that keep your interest throughout the narrative. They especially center around the reveal of like new creatures. So yeah, when the crab demons attack, that is a totally wild moment of like, what is this? And the mermaids too. I was so excited and surprised by the mermaids showing up. I think that the use of the monster reveals throughout the narrative is actually really effective.
I also want to call out, in sort of a similar vein, the on the flip side of that is the incredibly mundane stuff that sort of leads into it, and specifically the fact that they include the deaths of a monkey, a cow, and a stowaway who was in a crate that unfortunately fell on a guy.
Yeah, the cow death was one of like my favorite moments, because that comes fairly early on in like the first third of the game, and I was like, oh, that's so creative that the cow skull on the wall can be used to like view to gain new information. And like I found myself wishing they would have done a little bit more with that. Like there's one memory where there's a goat in a cage up on deck, and that never comes into play. I was like, I wish they would have done that sort of thing a little bit more often.
I feel like there is somewhere that I didn't find, and clearly you didn't find, that like the goat somehow signifies the identity of some crew member. Like I'm positive that it's
like
there.
the butcher.
Yeah, like the connection has to exist. I just don't know what it would be.
I'll say there was a free roaming chicken that Janelle and I were very suspicious of. It showed up in a lot of memories. We were like, oh, that chicken, like it's gonna be somehow significant.
Mm-hmm.
I like to imagine that it's like one of the, because like when you go through one of the memories, and the one that I think like is the most eye-opening is the one where the guy dies of some kind of sickness in a bunk bed, and it says like 22 others present, and you're like, what? Like there's like 4 dudes here, and then like that's when you kind of realize that there's like a whole bunch of people there that aren't necessarily going to be called out, and I really wanted it. That would be great if there was just a scene that was like 5 others present, and you find the 4 other people, and then the chicken is one of them. Like you zoom in on the chicken, it pulls up one of. It's like the Justice at Sea.
Yeah,
it's like zooms in comically on this one chicken that's like between 2 people.
Like where's Waldo?
Yeah, where's
that chicken?
that chicken?
That chicken.
Where's that chicken?
Catch that chicken.
A new Popeyes campaign being launched.
In the kids' meals, you get like a "Where's that chicken" book.
It doesn't even have to be Waldo themed. It could just be like, "Where's that chicken? Here, Popeyes. Where the chicken is? Come get some." That's what they say at Popeyes, right?
Yeah, it's Popeyes.
I fucking love Popeyes.
Come get some. And it's like you can either go there and get chicken, or they're just gonna beat the tar out of you.
Why do you think it's a trap?
Yeah, come get some. That's the most antagonistic phrase.
Continuing the NOCLIP obsession with taglines, and slogans.
Sure,
Oh, speaking of obsessions and animals that die, my deep obsession in this game more than any other was the monkey. So it made the ending all the more important for me because there was one scene ever where I saw the monkey. I assume I'm just stupid and didn't see it at some other point.
Which scene did you see the monkey
I
in?
don't remember.
Okay.
I did forever ago.
I think I also only saw him.
Yeah. And from that moment, I was like, oh man, that's cute. The surgeon has a monkey. Never seen again. Like complete.
It's in the photo, isn't it?
I don't remember.
He's not in that many scenes. I mean, I'm sure he's in more than one, but actually there's not that many that you missed, I don't think.
Yeah. I was entranced by this monkey because it's such like a defining characteristic of a person, but it also makes sense why he wouldn't have like the monkey around during surgery. I don't think that's really that helpful of an assistant, but I looked so hard for more monkey evidence and found nothing. There was a point in time in which I genuinely, not a joke, thought the monkey might have been some kind of like mystical plant from like other malicious forces, but
from the foreign enemies.
Yeah,
from the foreign enemies.
The monkey was the foreign enemy
the whole time. The fact that you could use animals to travel back to made me wish that you could have also done that with the crab men and the mermaids.
Yeah. So my first impression actually on the crabmen, partly because of my like just total lack of observational skill, and two, based on the way that they look in the scenes, because everything is drawn in a way that is drawn. It's raycasted in a way
rendered.
Yeah, that looks. Everything looks like not totally real, or like things like fire and other physical attributes create like wild distortions. I thought that the crabs actually were passengers that had like morphed into crabs because of something.
That's actually not that. Like,
no, it's not outside of the realm
yeah.
possibility.
They could have like mutated.
Yeah,
it's the first one that you find that you can click on is a guy who was burned to death when they were burning the crab to death, but it just seemed like the watch just pops up when at the crab, and I didn't even notice the dude, so I just was like, oh shit, gonna find out what happened to this crab guy.
Go to a guy?
Yeah, and so I went into the thing and they showed the guy, and then eventually I figured out like, oh, the crabs are separate entities that have things on top of them. But I always thought that they were like actually other crew members, and that was gonna be to me, that was like at that point in the game, it was like the most exciting mystery to solve. Is like who were the people who
became the crabmen?
Yeah, who were like the crab corrupted.
How can I perform the crab ritual?
Exactly,
Make
to
myself
become a crab.
A crab drider and escape to the bottom of the sea. Fucking stunned. I just thought of this right now. They never brought up the shell glow off the coast.
Yes.
That never came up again.
Yes.
Yep, I was going to bring that up earlier when we were talking about... Because I noticed that, like, off the boat, that there was the little twinkling thing in the distance.
Pretty much immediately.
Yeah. And whenever you do the scene where the people are on the boats and they get attacked by the mermaids, one of them has that glowy thing, like, attached to it.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't remember if that was the shell or if that was just part of the mermaid. I didn't remember.
It's the shell.
But I was like...
Yeah,
I thought that was like the explanation for that, maybe, but then I don't know if it ever actually.
You mean like there
makes
are
sense?
There are mermaid spies?
No. Like that scene is like you know how like when you find a corpse it stays there.
Yeah.
Like maybe that scene was like stayed there off in the distance.
That's
or something,
interesting.
but it's there the whole time.
Yeah.
My interpretation of it was at the last scene, or maybe the penultimate scene. The whichever mate it is who is like the good guy officer at the end asks the mermaid to guide the ship back safely, and Janelle's interpretation of it was that was the mermaid like off in the water who had escorted the ship back to safety, like still out there.
That I think makes more sense. Than
Yeah,
anything
that makes
I
a
could come.
lot of
Yeah.
sense.
Except that's a slow ass mermaid. Because I spent like 7 hours on that ship, and I don't think that they got very far away.
It's just hanging out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, what's that guy doing on that ship?
He keeps
walking all around,
Just ready to spear you through the jaw in case you try to take their ship.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I was actually going to ask about like if you guys had any hard conclusions about the ending, and I am actually really satisfied to hear that everybody sort of had more of an interpretive understanding of it than like something concrete, because I feel like that's what's intended.
Oh yeah.
And it's also my favorite way to write something is to make sure that there's like just an element that is just unknowable, and in this case it happens to be these like mystical ancient shells which sort of act as a MacGuffin but also are like in themselves defined and intriguing enough that you feel like there should be more information, and maybe you can puzzle some things out, but the game refuses to give you concrete evidence on it.
Yep.
It's like Twin Peaks: The Return, episode 8. It's wild.
Well, I also did you
Great
guys
callback.
Yeah, I got that reference just for you who've never seen the show.
Thanks. Yes.
Did you guys have an interpretation of when your character puts the book back on the bookshelf at the end, what that was meant to signify? Because I was wondering whether it was meant to suggest that like this is a routine thing that your character does. Like here's one entry in the many times I have like cataloged the chronology of somebody's death.
Oh, that's canon. Not in like the mystical way, not in like the like I go back in time with the watch, because he didn't own the watch until the guy, but your character is an insurance collector. It is his job to like go to where all these horrible things happen and determine insurance payouts. Like that's what the whole letter at the end is.
Well, I understood that. It wasn't clear to me, and maybe I just missed something at the beginning. Did you get the watch just as part of? Did Evans send you the watch?
Yes, that was another recurring mystery. Is like, where did the surgeon get the watch?
Yeah, why does he have that watch?
And he clearly understands how it works perfectly because of the monkey. So he's like also like an unknown mystical force. Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming it's something that he came across, like, in his whatever...
In his medicine travels?
Well, clearly the dude isn't just, like, straight up a regular fucking surgeon. Because, like, he's got a lot of kind of quirks about him, we'll say. The carrying around a monkey thing is kind of a big giveaway for that.
I'd say that's a pretty strong quirk.
Yeah, that's like oh man, what's that guy's name? Samwise Gamgee, that's not it. From
The monkey of Samwise Gamgee.
Yeah, there's
That
a
lovable
007
monkey mascot
villain
from
who's
Lord
like
of
a
the
voodoo priest, and he's like just the wildest shit in the world. And I feel like that's like kind of the vibe I get from anybody who walks around with a monkey, even though he clearly is just sort of like more of a normal guy.
Yeah.
Baron Samedi is who I'm thinking of.
Gotcha.
Either way, I do want to point out real quick that I'm fairly certain that your character is female. And we all...
Yes. I think that's right.
Yeah.
There's a tell at the beginning of the game. I forget what it was, but I had the same conclusion.
Yeah. I think it's understood that it's a female character, and we just, like, literally everyone used a male pronoun there in the last, like, 2 minutes. So I'm just, like, throwing that out. I'm fairly certain that that's intended. But yeah. You're an insurance assessor, I think, is the actual term. And so, yeah, my interpretation of the book thing is just that now that it... Like, I think it is a very literal thing. I don't think that she actually is she's not a magic detective.
There is a year time gap in between the two. That is plenty of time with that watch to become a magic detective.
I took it as a more just kind of like simple symbolic thing of like the story's over now. So she puts the book, she closes it and puts it on the shelf.
It's specifically
like it's done.
for people who got the "you suck, dumbass" ending to be like, when you're actually finished, we can put the book on the shelf.
Yeah, like the book's now been gifted to her, and she's gonna put it back up on her shelf. That's all that I got out of it.
Question. Very important. Jumping back several steps. Was it more or less common for someone to own a monkey 200 years ago? Are there more people with monkeys as a percentage now or less?
Ooh, as a percentage, totally fucking flips that on its head.
I want a motion to not have that discussion and to talk about something else.
I won't have a discussion, however, I will assert that I believe that it is a higher number of people who own monkeys now and a higher percentage of people who owned monkeys then.
Okay.
And I bet you that there's a direct correlation to death by monkeys that happened in the ensuing 300 years.
Understandable. No discussion necessary. Daniel, what is your stance?
I've been trying to come up with a funny view on this while Chad was talking, but I actually don't think I have one.
Stop trying to obscure the truth and just give us
I think that
knowledge.
I think that Chad's probably wrong. I think both a higher total number and a higher percentage of people own monkeys now than did in the at the turn of the 19th century, when most people had like never traveled outside of like the 50 square mile area of their home. Probably more people own monkeys now.
Andy?
Sure.
All right. Well,
come to our Discord. Discuss this.
What's
an important topic?
I don't know if this is a thing that I've expressed on the podcast before.
You hate me?
I hate monkeys.
Oh.
Like I just don't like monkeys. Like as an animal, like they're one of my least favorites. And one of the most annoying things about monkeys, probably one of the most annoying things about all animals, or of all the animals, the monkeys have the most annoying of this, is their like vocal emanations and the sounds that they make. Mm-hmm. On the flip side, the sound design of this game is incredible.
Agree.
That is not a transition. But
I think you mean that is the strongest segue ever prepared.
Automatically ruined if you acknowledge it.
Oh, well, I'll cut this part out.
Okay.
Like the part where he disagrees with me,
right.
And now everyone just go in and say, I am great and smart.
But that's important context for the Discord debate that is going to take place.
Over monkeys.
So
yeah.
I just want to be on the record as objecting to you removing that part of the podcast.
Okay.
By on the record, you mean off the record, because that is Chad's decision. The record tends to fall exclusively in his domain.
This is true.
I agree. The sound design is great.
Yeah. So right before we went to the break, right, in the podcast, we got to this stupid joke or whatever awkward way that we ended it, like we always do, and then Dan did a very telling, like a bump bump, like that noise.
Yep.
And everyone, I'm assuming, instantaneously knew exactly what the fuck he was talking about.
Yep.
Because the sound cues in this game are like, I don't know what it is about them, but they are, like instantly change the emotion of the situation you're in and prepare you for the next one in like a flawless way.
Yep.
Like, I don't understand how this was done so well with the team that he had.
I is on record on this podcast already that I believe music is like magical mysticism from a time long past, that no amount of knowledge can ever bridge the gap into understanding.
Yeah.
And for similar reasons, I think the sound design in this game kind of gets there, where I feel literally enchanted, as if a hex has been placed upon me. But it's a good hex.
They use it really effectively to separate the present from the past that you're viewing. Like, it's like going from the mundane, like, kind of you're a person doing their job kind of a thing of walking around the ship, and then it goes like the dun dun, and like you're kind of like transported into like a still from an adventure serial, and like the music really emphasizes that.
The change in sound too, you're going from almost perfectly quiet to like normally the hustle and bustle of ship life, or some kind of cue in terms of what's people talking around you, because you never speak. There's nothing to break up the silence where you're at other than the occasional annoying ship guy. But yeah, so there's a contrast, not just in the existence of that separation point and the cues that the music goes through, but it feels like you're going back to somewhere that's alive, even though you're literally looking at a still.
And also, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, not even the melodic parts of the sound design, but even just the kind of, like, mundane sounds of the ship, as you described them, I think were really good and really effective. I mean, both in the scenes where small details and sounds can actually be really important to deducing people's identities, and just in sort of walking around the ship. I mean, I recall a specific point in time in playing this game where we were in the cargo hold and the lowest level of the ship, where I felt genuinely uneasy just because of how much the sound design had transported me to the place we were on the ship. I mean, it's hard to articulate, but like it really felt like we were like in the lowest part of the ship, and something about it just felt like very spooky and very like I honestly, I mean, partly because this is a modern game and they had the ability to, this game could have taken a 180 at any moment. And so I always felt like a sense of uncertainty about what might happen next. And it almost felt like a horror game for me down in the cargo hold. I felt like unsafe, even though I was the only actual actor at play.
Agreed. Completely. I want to know where this game sourced its creaky wood.
Right.
Right? Like, that's always some of my favorite jobs to like watch videos or do interviews with are people who are in sound design, especially old-timey people like the old Looney Tunes sound designers who were just trying to fucking find objects that made something, not literally the sound, but like the sound.
Like the Foley people, yeah.
Yeah.
This is we've talked about Foley on this podcast like several times for some reason.
One of my favorite examples is, like, I don't remember how I found this, but the guy who did the Foley work, or one of them anyway, for Hyperlight Drifter, like recorded like they were recording like a making of thing where they're talking to this guy, and he's like, okay, like today I'm gonna be like collecting some sound effects for the shotgun, and then so like what he ended up settling on was recording himself like slamming an oven, and then and then like taking it into whatever program he uses and like, you know, messing with it and making it like, you know, compressed and like a like a shotgun. And I just thought that was really cool, like just like around the house shit that he could use to make sound effects.
Yeah,
Think about all the effort that they put into making the wood even creakier.
I mean, the sound design in this game made me occasionally get the feeling that we all sometimes get in real life of somebody is watching me and I can't explain why I feel that way. And I think that's pretty cool. And I think that was intentional. I mean, I genuinely felt uneasy at times walking around the ship, and that's pretty neat.
Yeah, I mean, even though it isn't like literally haunted, it is like basically a ghost ship. So
Right.
Yeah. It's a ghost ship in the way that Gone Home is a ghost game.
yeah. So it does feel like there's all these dead bodies,
There's a lot of dead bodies.
Yeah, so I mean that's pretty unsettling.
Yeah, if you don't consider this a horror game, this is probably the game with the most corpses caused by someone other than you in a game.
Yeah, I wouldn't call it a horror game, but it's certainly got like a horror atmosphere for sure.
So I mostly kind of like let you guys go on about that, because the thing about all of this that I really do also want to focus in on is if you watch the credits, there's a ton of people who are credited for voice acting, but there's a lot fewer of them than 60, because like one dude did the voice for like 4 guys like pretty regularly, and I cannot believe how well done the voice acting was, both on like a writing and structural level. The fact that it had to tie into the way that you solved identities, meaning that you could learn voices, and that you had to learn voices, and you wouldn't get names from things, and you could match accents and like localized like different shit in their voices, and it was performed by so few people. From what I could gather from the page, or from the end of the credits scene, just like fucking voiceactors.com or whatever. Like they casted like these people who just like came in and basically nailed this. Like there's not a lot of spoken dialogue, but every ounce of it is important.
Yeah, I think the fact that there is so little is how you're able to pull something like that off. Is like when there's like not as much volume, because like lots of games have like shit tons of dialogue in them. When there's not as much, you can really focus on the details you need. Like especially these are like 30-second sound clips,
If that.
Yeah. So yeah, I think that like the more limited scale allowed them to give them like more quality into each one.
Yeah, for example, and this goes for, let's just kind of loop this back around to like everything. There's a set of people on the boat, Nathan and other guy who are brothers.
The Peters brothers.
The Peters brothers, yep.
Who I can tell by the fact that you immediately produced that, you also probably hyper focused on as soon as that guy was like, you killed my brother. And it's like, boom, like immediately a connection. It's like, you hear the voice, you know that he's English. You go, like he has like a Cockney accent. So you like go in and you look for people from England who have the same last name, and you've immediately narrowed down these two people. And then that leads into this whole like rigmarole where every time that you see something that could pertain to one of the other people, you start to like put everything together. And that's like one of my favorite sequences, because it was something that lasted for the entire game.
They even factor into that with like the tutorial, because the woman in the bed is someone's sister, isn't she? She has the same last name as somebody else.
It's the captain's wife.
Oh, okay, she's the wife. Okay,
she does have a brother who's a member of the crew. I think he's an officer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. So they introduced that like the characters will be like related to each other in that way, like right at the beginning.
Yeah, it's so good, and like the fact that they're able to like give you a big hint like that, and then make the cause of death for those people so ambiguous that it's something that you just have to keep in the back of your mind, so that you are always like one step closer every time that you make the next connection. And that's just one of those things that this game just fucking nails. This is, of course, one of the ones where they... because I'm pretty sure that dude drowned.
He does.
Yeah.
He's part of the red shirt crew that goes out in the boat.
I wanted there to be more to that guy, too, because I like the character. Because he's in, like, every fight scene, fighting pretty valiantly, and then, like, just murders a guy basically in cold blood.
I got really hung up on the tattooed guy pretty early on.
Baba.
He's in like the Kraken. Yeah. Once I figured out what his name was, it seemed like it should have been more obvious that it was him. Mm-hmm. But no, he's in like one of the first Kraken scenes, and he's in a ton of scenes, and it took forever to figure out what he does on the ship.
Yeah,
or
he
what his name
was Janelle and I's favorite character.
Yeah.
Every time we saw him in a scene, we're like, "Oh, Maba's here." Which actually, I was going to ask you guys, like, were there characters in this narrative who stood out to you one way or the other?
All of the we've touched on it already, like the carpenter, the carpenter's mate, the butcher, the character or the artist, the ones with the more like obvious jobs that were easier to pick out, like in the surgeon and the surgeon's assistant. Mm-hmm. Like I latched on
the butcher, the baker, the candlestick.
Yes,
candlestick maker.
Yes, all of the above.
Did you just say candlestick maker?
I did. It's the most intense job you've ever had.
I guess we're gonna get that NSFW tag.
But yeah, I latched onto those really early on, and those really helped me like get my like a hold of the game. Where like, okay, the goal is really to figure out like people's role on the ship, and like I felt like those characters stood out and like made me understand that the most.
The gunner guy. I think gunner is the title that he has. Mm-hmm. He has...
with that top hat?
Yeah.
The penguin is what I kept calling him.
Yeah, I loved that character.
That was the gunner's
reason.
mate, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, the gunner is the guy who has like the
beard
the
in the cap.
beard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wolfson
and
or something
every
like
time
that.
you see him, he like it's Wolf. WOLFF is his like is his last name. But he like, because they identify him pretty early on, and you can kind of figure that out, but his cause of death is kind of hard to pin down, which to me made me focus on him intently all the time. And, like, he's just, like, the difference between what I thought his model looked like versus how he was drawn was, like, hysterically, like, totally separate. And I don't know, like, the character just really stuck out for me like that, and I kept tabs on that motherfucker until the day he died, which was pretty quick.
Is he the one who had the top half of his head blown off, or did he have his arm ripped off?
He had the top half of his head blown off.
It's a tough way to go.
In a great way.
He died doing what he loved.
Having his head blown off.
Yes.
Well, at least he stabbed that midshipman to death before he died.
That's true. Yeah. Dude, great character. Like,
what a good guy.
Yeah. I mean,
planned treacheries, murdered the young.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
JJ, did you have a favorite crew member?
Honestly, I knew him as Train Hat Guy, but it was the same guy that we've been talking about. I was also trying to learn the history of Train Hat Guy and like why he was so distrusting of everything.
I feel like this should be the episode art. It's just these three characters.
It'll be the scene of the
Train Hat
firing
guy
squad.
Yeah.
Andy, who's your guy, if you had one guy?
Oh, it was the tattooed guy.
Oh,
Maba. Just Maba and Train Hat.
Yeah.
But it's Maba is in half, and Train Hat Guy is just like a lower jaw with just like
his
gore.
head exploding out of the back.
That was a
Yeah,
cruel
fine.
way of referencing the fact that Maba was torn in half, JJ.
Yeah.
You mean describing it? Just saying the words he was torn in half? Whatever.
The other crew member that really stood out to me was Henry Brennan. Who I thought by the end of the game,
impeccable asshole.
Yes, I thought by the end of the game his body count was like 6. Like I thought he had killed basically everybody. The like final sequence revealed to me that apparently he only shot one dude, but Brennan just always seemed to be there when something really bad is going down. So in my mind, he was like the most nefarious character.
His body count was, I think, at least 2 or 3.
Well, he shoots
But
the guy that was executed.
Yeah.
He's like, his is
And
the
he
bullet
clubs.
that like finds its
Okay.
home.
Yeah, and then okay. So yeah, I like that guy as well, but it was like really gratifying to get his like identification correct because I guessed it. Like I didn't know who he was, and I just put that all of these people were murdered by someone named Brennan. And I was like, yeah, Brennan killed him. Brennan killed that guy too. Fuck it. Brennan stabbed this asshole to death.
Could Brennan
In
have
his
killed
sleep.
everyone on the ship?
There's actually an achievement.
Yeah.
Just like if you put the captain for every single person's cause of death, you get an achievement called the captain did it. But anyway,
That's pretty good.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I put Brennan for all these fucking people, and then like I labeled the guy, thinking I was wrong about his identity, and it immediately clicked 3 of them, and I was like, oh, Brennan's a fuck up. Like he's really ruined this whole thing. And then like things kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah.
Because that was early game. That's when shit's like just kind of fast.
Death does follow in Brennan's wake. He is always there when things are going badly.
The beanie of darkness.
Yeah.
What?
I'm like trying to go Heart of Darkness, Hat of Darkness. But it's just not like as good as I want it to be.
Okay.
Speaking of things that aren't as good as I wanted them to be,
Yeah.
the way that I'm going to get from where I am now
Oh my God.
into final thoughts.
Jeez. Okay.
Do we have final thoughts?
Oh my God.
Could you elaborate
I feel like
on
this is
the meaning of that transition?
I wanted to have a good transition to go from our podcast into the end of our podcast, and that wasn't it, but I'm still doing it anyway.
I thought your commentary was like, this podcast has been bad. What
Oh,
are your
no, I
final
think it's been
thoughts?
Now that we've done this shit ass podcast,
I guess but Detective Pikachu wasn't that bad after all.
Well, would you rather listen to this podcast or play Detective Pikachu? And if the answer is ever play Detective Pikachu, we fucking retire.
Yeah.
Anyway, are there any things that we want to like have a whole thing about before we go into final thoughts?
Nope.
Nope.
think I'm good.
I'm good.
All right. I'm actually going to go first on this one, as mostly as a reprieve for the rest of everybody, because I feel like I say final thoughts and then I just immediately go like, "Oh, what do you think?"
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what I think about this game is probably less harsh than my discussion in the first half would lead you to believe. I think that this game is probably 6 hours of very satisfying puzzle solving, in that if you listen to our previous episode, basically picks up everything that we thought Detective Pikachu did wrong and does it right in a cooler context with better characters and a nicer story. Like,
Yeah, I was gonna say at the beginning that the podcast gods must have heard JJ's prayers.
yeah. So this game is just is rewarding in a way that I guess kind of anticipated given its reputation, but not in a way that I actually expected it to. And really my biggest issue with the game is just sort of that end game slog. To me, it felt like nowadays trying to get 100% completion in a game, albeit like scaled down pretty significantly, because you always get through a lot of stuff and maybe even enjoy yourself a lot, but then once you get to the last couple of things, usually it's not satisfying. It feels like a chore, and I felt like a lot of the guesswork that went in once I had like exhausted, if I'm being honest, my patience, it became less of an enjoyable experience. I was happy to have other things to occupy my mind while I was doing the brainless stuff, but with doing the brainful stuff, that is arguably like probably my top 2 or 3 games that like actually taxed my own logic and thought process.
I'm stealing number 2. We're going counterclockwise, unlike the cool clock that you've got that always goes clockwise because it's a clock.
Let's record them in this order and then play them in reverse order.
Fair, good. This game is going on my list of games to show off video games as a medium. Like, I genuinely think this is the first true mystery game that nails the premise so hard that I think it expands like the frontier of the medium. I think people are going to iterate on this kind of minimalist design in mystery games in a very good way that I will be very happy to see, especially in different other, even necessarily not even as unique settings than the one in the Obra Dinn. Just the same mechanic set in a different place, I think would also be fantastic, and I look forward to seeing it. Like, I've liked this game about as much as I like Portal, for example. I think it's great for similar reasons in context. It's not a personal favorite. It is very, very good. But it is going to be a game that I'm going to bring up when trying to convince other people that they should play video games. And I think it is that good.
I feel very similarly to Chad, I think. I respect the game a lot, and I did get a fair amount of enjoyment out of it. But it did hit a point for me where it kind of started to feel like work towards the end. And at the beginning, it gave me a lot of anxiety, making me feel a little bit dumb and overwhelmed at all the stuff I had to take in. But, like, once I got into it, though, like, there is a really enjoyable game here. And, under different circumstances, like I said, if I had played it with somebody else, or maybe if I would have taken more notes, like, I would have been able to have a bit more of a smoother experience with it than I did. But like overall, I'd say that I did enjoy the game.
I think I'm a lot closer to JJ than Andy and Chad. I don't really have a hot take about this game, but I just really love my time with it. I think the difficulty curve, keeping in mind that I played it with another person, which I think is a great way to play this game, was perfect throughout. It felt really rewarding, but still challenging. Didn't hit any walls. I think the narrative hooks you from the beginning with the mutiny and has these inflection points that keep you interested throughout and always on your toes about what's going to come next. I think the detective part of the game feels really authentic. You can solve people's identities using the kind of information you would use in real life to figure out who people are. There's not a series of prescribed steps to, you have to have this information and only this information to identify this person, which I think is really great. This game, to me, feels one of a kind. I've never seen or played anything quite like it, so I think that really has that going for it as well. So this is, I agree with JJ. I think this is a great game that kind of expands on video games as a medium or genre of entertainment. So I really loved it.
I hope like part of me has this slight hope that like Dan actually does lose some of this audio. So there's this whole sequence where we're like, all right, Dan, what are your final thoughts?
We're not that lazy. We wouldn't fill it with nothing. We would do a joke at least.
It would be this joke is what would happen. But it has to be suitably long to be funny. That said, thank y'all for listening to NoClip this week. I was hoping to go into it with like some amount of chuckling, and I tried to like just inject as much chuckling as I could with the y'all. I don't know if that was really.
I feel like we were all stepping back to give you space for that joke because I just assumed there was something coming. I didn't want to step on your toes.
Y'all never gets chuckles; it only gets groans.
Don't you fucking say anything bad about y'all. I had this conversation this weekend with a bunch of doctors.
Hey, can I add one thing that I totally forgot to mention?
Yes.
Actually, two things.
Maybe.
First.
Also, you can't feel the things.
Did you guys get trolled by the mist trail as hard as I did? because occasionally it would like lead you all around the ship, only to lead you back to where you were standing originally, which I thought was very funny.
Well, it always went to exactly the place where the corpse was.
Yeah, but I would just
originally tried to race it.
I would just
to
get
where
like
it was.
I would get distracted and be like, "Oh, I gotta follow this," and then just like wander. Janelle would always get grumpy with me about it because she was aware of the fact that this goes to where the corpse was. Anyway,
Yeah, but there is a trick to it. It only actually moves if you're looking at where it is. So there's like a deeper troll level where if you're just standing there like waiting for it to arrive and it goes off screen, it will never finish, and the music actually like trails off.
Oh, really? I
like,
never
until
noticed that.
Yes. Yeah,
That's
I tried to
actually
outsmart
really
it once, and I was like,
Yeah,
where did it go?
I thought that I had noticed some kind of correlation between looking at it and it moving, but
Yeah.
I wasn't ever 100% certain.
Yeah, so you tell Janelle that she can shove it, and that was necessary for progression.
I will tell her that. The second thing is way less interesting, so I will just flag that maybe we don't want to include this in the podcast. But that there was a guy who he was one of the drowning victims, and it was the scene where the cannon like shot the guy's head off.
Uh-huh.
He
I know
was
exactly
one
who
of
you're talking
two
about.
people that died in that scene, and like he's not anywhere in the actual scene, and it took us forever to just guess what happened to him, and I still don't understand how you were supposed to know what happened to him. Like he literally is in one scene, and then
Actually,
the next
I think
chronological
I might
scene
actually
he's
not
missing.
know exactly. Yeah. Oh, okay. They put him as missing.
There's a guy that gets crushed by the cannon.
Yeah.
And then the cannon fires and like blows the head off the other guy.
Right.
And in the scene right before that guy gets his head blown off, this guy is standing right behind him and is listed as dying in that scene, even though his body is not in that scene.
Oh, right. Yeah, he was, or at least the thing that worked for me, was shot by a kraken, which is the same cause of
Weird.
death for the other guy.
Drowning worked for us.
Yeah, there's actual ambiguity in this. I found this once while Googling stuff later. You can use poisoned or burned for reaching into the chest with the shell.
We
put
never
poisoned,
used
for
poison.
example.
Oh, I put burned.
Yeah, I never
there
used
was,
poison for anything.
There was something else where you could have put like burned or exploded.
Yeah, yeah.
Like there's
Oh,
a
yeah.
couple of instances where you could put two
Oh,
different
you have
things.
to put, for the guy who got hit with like the gunpowder explosion?
Yeah.
He exploded.
He exploded
Yeah.
for sure.
And he's the only guy who explodes.
Yeah.
And I'm giving him his distinction as being the exploding man.
Like there isn't even ambiguity there. It's not like he did not die of the burn wounds later.
Right.
He
Well,
was
he might
dead
have.
instantly.
Yeah.
Just that moment.
Yeah, but I mean his body burned.
Yeah, totally.
I'm not denying there were burns involved. I'm just saying it wasn't what was lethal about the circumstance. In the same way where if you fall out of a plane and hit water, you did not drown.
Right.
But you would have, but you didn't.
All right.
I know we're now really in the dregs of the podcast, but did you guys go and check out the mouse sensitivity options in this game?
No.
Oh, they're
No.
hysterical.
They're really
actually.
funny.
Yeah.
Like different sized mice?
It starts off as like normal or something, but then if you go up and down, it's like very slow, like barely even moving. It's like
The highest,
immobile.
yeah, the highest sensitivity one is titled "A Parody of Control."
Yeah, which I of course went to immediately.
Yeah, I messed with the visual options but didn't touch it. Oh, it was cool. You could put it in like a windowed mode.
Yeah.
I thought that was neat. Like I checked out the visual options but never messed with the control options.
Yeah. Wait, like my mouse is like a 1600 DPI mouse, and so if you set it to a
Jaden's face
if
when
you set it to a parody of Control, it like literally is like you go to like breathe in order to control your hand so that you move the mouse in the smallest amount possible, and the particles of dust that float unnoticed underneath of the mouse trigger the laser and make your character do 73 backflips simultaneously. Like, it is a fucking nightmare, and I think it's just there for comedy, but it's very funny. Thank you for listening to NoClip this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time, in our classic all-time follow-up to Mystery May, we're entering into June and playing God of War. Four-ish. The rebranded, it's God of War. The one on the PS.
It's God of War and God of War. That's what we're doing now.
Yeah, this is the one where you play as Waluigi.
Mm-hmm.
And his son.
And his son, Atreus.
It's on the PS4.
Yeah. Anyway, we actually are playing God of War, and I feel like I've already like I feel like I already I have like a picture perfect in my mind of how this podcast is gonna go, and you are definitely not going to miss it. So definitely tune in for that one. Until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information is on our website at NOCLIP There you can find our email address if you want to send us messages directly, our Twitter account, our YouTube, links to iTunes and Google Play, so you can subscribe to those because you're just listening to it now, and you want to hear all of us talk a whole bunch for like literally hundreds of hours. And then afterward, check out our brand new Discord, where you can learn all about the very dumb shit that we like to talk about.
Figure out how much shrimp cost individually.
I feel like I need to bring up Thorpo.
Daddy Thorpo.
Yeah, Thorpo Fantasy, who I can't explain to you who he is because it would ruin the intrigue. But check it out; you'll find all about that. And I'm hoping that by talking about it right now, it spurs additional discussion about Thorpo Fantasy on the Discord.
Lore.
Lorpo thing.
Lorpor.
Yeah.
What did it end up meaning in Latin? Do either of you remember?
It's like screaming.
So I'm totally unfamiliar with what you're talking about. So
go check it out.
Yeah, check it out. Dan is a member of the Discord.
I am.
Yeah. That means cut.
Thank you
cut
for
at that
listening
point.
to No Clip
cut.
this week.
No, you've already done it. We can't restart.
What
this
are we
cycle.
talking about
Next
next
time we'll be talking about Rat Patrol 3. I'm pretty sure I got the name of that game wrong. All right. Let's start over. Thank you for listening to No Clip this week.
What are we talking about next time?
Next time we'll be talking about Bad Rats 2. JJ?
Bad rats.
Until that time, you can get a hold of us. All of our contact information
Is that
is on
badrats.com?
Badrats.pro.
It's splatterrats.pro.
Rattershot.pro.
Splattershot.rats.
All of these domains.
Come to our Discord. Become a bad rat yourself.
Yes.
All right. This is the last take. Thank you for listening to Rat Clip this week.
What are we ratting about next time?
Rat time, we'll be talking about Bad Rats 2.
On the Rat Station 2.
Until that time, you can get a hold of our rats at www.nocheese.com/goodrats.
Squeak that like button.
Rats.